Welcome back, friends. Today, I want to talk a little bit about MMORPGs and what kind of future they may hold in the gaming scene. So, for starters, if you've been playing video games for a while now and you've been on the internet at all, you will have at least heard the term MMORPG. Now, MMORPG just stands for Massive Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. But at this point in time, it doesn't even necessarily have to mean exactly that. In essence, an MMORPG is just a shared world with many hundreds of different players, all joining together and working towards the same goal. If you want an example of what an MMORPG would look like, just think of World of Warcraft, Black Desert Online, Elder Scrolls Online, and many other types of games like this. You get to interact with other players in the cities, and you can adventure together in dungeons, fight monsters, explore together, among very many other activities that you can do with other players. Nowadays, I think you can count the number of very active MMORPGs on one hand, and I think very many people have decided to stop playing MMORPGs, or at least not as much as they used to in the past. Back in the days, MMORPGs were a dime a dozen. If you just typed in the term, you would come up with anywhere from 30 to 40 different MMORPGs active, and you could download and play any one of them at any time. They were very much a social springboard where you could just jump into the game and create your new life on there and just make friends and have a lot of fun. The only thing about it was that there was a huge drawback to this, and that is the amount of time it takes to actually play through an MMORPG. Now, this can vary based on what type of goals you want to achieve in the game, but the games were created in a way so that you had to spend a lot of time in the gaming world in order to get anything done at all. And unlike a single player game, you really had to depend on other team members and other players to get things that you needed. I still have plenty of memories of a lot of the old MMORPG games that I used to play and a lot of the friends that I made along the way. But the grind was real in those days. And I remember sinking hours and hours and days and weeks and months into these games. Nowadays, I think many players have just decided on their own that the reward just isn't worth the effort. I don't think it's because people aren't as sociable as they used to be, but maybe there's just many more platforms to be able to be social on, and you don't need to just spend all your time in the game anymore. We've got lots of social media, we've got Discord, we've got YouTube and other platforms where you can share your thoughts and ideas with other like-minded people. So the idea of having to sink in hundreds and thousands of hours into an MMORPG just to get that same feedback doesn't seem sensible anymore. At least that's my opinion on it. Now, that doesn't mean MMORPGs are dead. We do still have a few of them coming up in 2025 and beyond. For example, we have games like Dune Awakening, Arc Age Chronicles, Aeon 2, Ashes of Creation, and more. However, the player base numbers likely will be nothing how they would have in the past. Something has fundamentally changed in the minds of gamers who used to play MMORPGs. Speaking from personal experience, at least on my part, I just don't have the type of time to put into those games like I used to. We're older now, we have a lot more responsibilities, and I think we take our time a little bit more seriously than we used to. It doesn't mean we don't still want to have fun or interact with other players in the game, but it just means we have to think carefully on how we spend that time and just how much of our energy we're putting into something we feel might not be that rewarding anymore. It's really up to each individual player to decide for themselves, but I think the numbers speak volumes. The state of MMORPGs just isn't the same as it used to be. I think a lot more players, at least in the younger ones, have decided that they prefer the more fast-paced and competitive scene nowadays. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it definitely says something about where gaming is headed. But I don't want to shift this all onto the players alone though. Many of the MMORPGs that I myself have tried and played throughout the last decade have really had a push towards single-player experience. Back in the older days of MMORPGs, you really couldn't get anywhere alone. You were forced into tough situations when having to play with other players. Sometimes you just didn't like each other, but that didn't matter because you both had something in common, and that was more important than the animosity. And nowadays, in an attempt to make the player more comfortable, the game developers have tried to create a more single-player friendly type of MMORPG. But the concept alone fails because the whole point of an MMORPG is the multiplayer experience. Without it, the dynamic falls flat. You really have no need for other players, except for things like late game, end game, big boss raids, and those type of things. But that's pretty much at the very end of the game when you've experienced most of the rest of the game all by yourself. So you never really have a shared experience of the true intent of the game. So what we end up with is more along the lines of games like Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, where you have a large open world and some multiplayer experience, but no real interaction with other players and random experiences that you'll never forget. Not even going to get started on the whole gacha thing, because I certainly hope that that's not going to be part of the future of MMORPGs. But who's to say, right? As for me personally, I think I've started to focus more on the single player experience myself, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to do that in an MMORPG. For that, I can just boot up Steam and put on any game that I have. I enjoy being pulled into the whole narrative and the world, but the point of an MMORPG is to be able to see that and experience that with other players, and be surprised and wowed together. I'm not saying that we won't ever see another MMORPG that fosters that type of intimacy with other players, but if and when those do come out, they will be the very few rare gems that we see. But hopefully it's not too late for MMORPGs. And like I said, we still do have a few of them coming out soon, so who knows what the future holds. Nevertheless, what do you think? Do you have any favorite MMORPGs that you used to play in the past? Or are you looking forward to any of the new upcoming ones? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy gaming content like gameplay, narratives, game reviews, gaming news, and commentary, consider liking this video and subscribe to The Hero's Blade. Until next time, wish you all the best and God bless.